Okay, so hello. Let's get straight to the point. Today I'm going to be talking about my experience applying to the animation workshop 6 times and what I think we can all learn from it, both as my urging this school to change the application system to increase transparency and to try to prevent other students going through what I did. I recommend that anyone who plans on applying several times watches the entire video, but still I'm going to put some timestamps in the description for which topics I'm tackling. But first we need to say what this is and what this isn't. I'm not saying the school is bad, because I don't think it is. I haven't studied there, I've only been there as part of the open workshop program, but from everything I've heard, it is a very good school. Otherwise I wouldn't have tried applying 6 times. However, the application system is very flawed. And we are going to go through why today and why I think that is and how it's affected me. We're also going to go through my story, specifically my experience. And the reason why is that I think it is important both to convey the amount of damage and harm the lack of communication and transparency can do to applicants who are sinking all of their resources into this because they have no other option, and also because I think it can help other similar applicants in similar situations relate and see, oh, this could be me. When it came to my options for studying animation, they were extremely limited, which is to say I only had one option, and that is the animation workshop, because I come from a country with very low wages. And specifically, even within those low wages, my family's working class. Then also the fact that I only know 2 languages, which are Spanish and English, and also that I have severe depression and ADHD. And those made it very difficult for me to self-teach or do online classes. It is very hard for me not to go to a physical class, which, you know, it's something that I really enjoy and that I find really helps me, both the routine and getting out of my house and being around other people. I think that is very helpful. And also, you cannot replace parts of the education that come with physical schools. Even if I went through self-teaching, that experience is not equivalent to going to a school. You miss out on the networking, you miss out on the career opportunities that come from internships, and more importantly, you miss out on being around other students, which I think is very important. Let's go through my attempts. So first and second attempts, I don't think I was ready for the school either, and I was rejected both times, and I took them like a champ. I was fine, you know, I was like, okay, I'm rejected, I'll try again, you know, I'm not going to give up because I have no other options and I really want to study animation. Third attempt, I got to the interviews. And, you know, I was besides myself. I was extremely happy. But then I did really bad at the interview, and this was completely on me. I was rejected, and that hurt a lot. That was when it started hurting, and it only got worse with time. Fourth attempt, I got rejected without an interview. And, you know, I remember talking to alumni from the animation workshop who looked at my 4th portfolio, and they were like, it's really strange that you didn't get to the interviews again after getting in once to the interviews. And, you know, that really made me think, oh, there's something wrong with me, you know? So for the 5th application, first, let's say I got a job as a storyboarder for a popular toy brand here in Spain. And I was working remotely full-time, so I didn't need to be anywhere, right? I found out about this program at TAW called Open Workshop Portfolio, which is a free course where they offer you this office space around other open workshop students. And they let you make your portfolio there and have like a mentorship during monthly meetings. So I said, okay, I really want to get in, let's go. So I moved to Viborg and I attended Open Workshop Portfolio. And, you know, when I got there and the coordinators found out about my storyboarding job, they said, hey, if you don't quit this job, we're going to have to give your spot to someone else. And I was like, okay, I want to be an animator, not a storyboarder, and I don't think at this storyboarding job I'm going to learn what I need to learn. So I quit. And I was rejected without an interview. And all of my classmates, save for one, got in. And that really hurt. Those classmates were my friends as well. So for the 6th application, I decided, hey, this has got to be my last one. Because even though I haven't talked about it, each application, it was getting more and more painful. And it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. And, you know, I was like, I cannot take this anymore. And, you know, clearly, if they don't want me after this, if they don't want me after being a storyboarder, then, I'm just going to try one last time to try to improve upon what I think can be improved, and that's it. Because I can't go on like this, and I don't know what awaits me after that, so I better get in. That is to say, it was extremely rough, and I was hopeless, and this meant everything to me. And I was sinking all of my resources and hearing back nothing about what was wrong. Also, in 2023, I started experiencing severe hair loss. And it is not visible right now because my hair is longer and I am on treatment, but still it is there, and I will put some pictures of the hair loss here. So I went to the doctors, and I had a bunch of blood tests. I went to the dermatologist, and the conclusion they reached was that it was due to stress. So, I just want to really emphasize just how important this can be for students, and the sacrifices they're making and how much it matters. And people really do care, and there needs to be, I think TAW needs to be aware of just how important it can be. That at least merits some communication for at least some students, because it is absolutely devastating. So yeah, we get to my 6th application. I had given up on hope completely, and I get an email saying, oh, your application has been updated. And I got to the interviews. I cried so much, I screamed so much. I didn't do this the first time I got to the interviews, but this time I was crying and screaming because I couldn't believe it. Also because it dawned in that now the rejection was going to hurt a lot more. So I got to the interviews, and for the interview there is a test and an interview. And during the test, I think I didn't do a good job because I spent an hour and a half researching during the test. Don't do that. Maybe make research like 10 to 20 minutes, not an hour and a half. But still, it wasn't terrible. And then at the interview, I thought I did well compared to the 3rd time, except the judges seemed very uninterested in what I had to say. So for the portfolio, you have to make an introduction video. So how the interviews work was that there were 15-minute breaks between each interview. And it was my understanding and the other applicants' understanding, and this might be a rumor, I don't know, that those 15 minutes were used to look at the portfolio and look at the introduction video in order to ask the questions that need to be asked. And this was in a way backed by other applicants because most of them were asked stuff about their video. They mentioned, being in a certain country at a certain point. That is brought up at the interview. In my case, it became clear immediately, in my opinion, that they hadn't watched my video. So for example, there were a lot of things that I was asked that were answered by my video, but the most flagrant one was that at one point I was asked, so have you ever lived outside? I felt my heart drop because a big chunk of my video was about how I moved to Viborg and I lived there for 6 months for open workshop. And it was like, damn, okay, they haven't watched the video, okay. And just in general, they seemed really uninterested in me as an applicant. I could see I was telling them things and they weren't really listening. And that was very frustrating and very painful because I felt that otherwise, I have my quirks, sure, and maybe, I made some missteps, I don't know. But I felt that I was doing a good job, and it was really sad that they weren't really interested in listening to me. So yeah, I exited that interview being like, I did well, but I think these guys don't like me. When the interview invitations came in, I made a Discord group to try to have all of the applicants that were invited in it. And we could share our experiences there, and they were like, yeah, I was asked a lot of things about my portfolio and my video, and I was like, well, I wasn't. People were telling how their interviews went, and what the interviewers asked them tended to be very different from what I was asked. Because in my case, it seemed to be very, trying to get over with this interview. I was already discarded before going in, and that really hurt. Because, I'm not doing this on a whim. I've been applying 6 times, and I wish at least there had been some interest in me. So the day came and I found out I was rejected, and that really hurt. In my Discord server, we had 30 people who had applied for CA. And at the point the results came out, 20 had voted that they had been, to some extent, accepted to the course. Only one person had been rejected, and that was me. And that singling out and that insane ratio hurt a lot. At this point, when I've been singled out, when being rejected so many times, one must wonder, what is wrong with me as an applicant? And you might be thinking, it's probably your level, right? And, you know, maybe it is. I'm going to show some stuff so you get an idea of where my level is. Because, I don't know, maybe you see your art and you're like, this will not happen to me because my art is great. And, you know, maybe that's the problem. There were amazing applicants this year, applicants that were definitely better at art than me. But, you know, I've also seen people with incredible art much better than mine, get rejected. Not even get to the interview. In my case, I think my art is adequate. I think it's adequate. It got to the interviews twice, and that means that by their standards, that is enough for me to study there. So one might think, okay, maybe it's not your level, maybe it's your attitude because you're making this video. And I don't know, maybe it's my attitude, but not necessarily because I'm confrontational, but rather maybe there's something wrong about me. That is something I've wondered a lot because I haven't heard back about what it is that's wrong with me as an applicant. I have no way of knowing, and I wish I knew. I have to say, I've always been overthinking, what is their perfect candidate? Because I need to get in. And I think that might have affected the way I acted. So I think applicants not knowing what's wrong with their portfolios is a big issue. And in my case, it's been a big source of pain. And I still have no answers. The only indication I have as to why I was rejected this year is that at the interview, one of the interviewers said that my line work was sloppy. Like, I don't think before putting down the line. Like, I just conform with the first one I put down or something like that. And I don't know if that was the reason I was rejected, but that's the only clue I have. Another thing you might be thinking is, maybe you're the only one. It seems you're being excluded through all of this. So, you know, maybe you're the only one that this is happening to. And I don't know how common this is, but I do know I'm not the only one this kind of thing has happened to. Off the top of my head, I can think at least of 3 other people. And 2 of them, I know their circumstances, and they were seriously unfair. They did eventually get in, so there's a happy ending, I suppose. But, you know, those aren't my stories to tell. I don't know the amount of people that have been affected in the way that I have. What I know is that I'm not alone. While we're at it, I also want to tackle this idea I had at one point that maybe they value you applying several times because it shows conviction and dedication to the school. And in my experience, and from having seen other students' attempts at getting in, I don't think they value repeat applications. Not positively, not negatively, maybe even negatively. One thing you will see a lot is that there are a lot of rumors about how they judge, and I will get into why later. But one of the rumors is that when you apply several times, they actually expect more of you after having spent so much time. When I made the Discord for this year's applicants, the overwhelming majority of CA applicants were first attempters. Off the top of my head, I can only think of another applicant that had applied several times. Statistically, there should be more repeated applicants, but there weren't. And I think this supports the theory that they don't seem to value that. So at that point, I decided that I would contact the school because maybe they were unaware of just how important it can be for students. And I wrote of my experience and what the problems with the application process I think are, and my suggestions as to how to improve it. And I will not show the emails because I don't know if that is legal. I will try to give a summary of what happened. So exactly a week after my email, I got a reply, and it was underwhelming. So to go through it, first of all, it was from someone who wasn't involved in my application, and I think thus the entire application process probably. And that was disappointing because it felt like they hadn't listened to what I was saying in that letter, since a big part of it was about hearing back about our applications, transparency about applications. And the guy they chose to reply to me had nothing to do with that. And that felt like they were still not listening. But I want to make it clear, I don't blame this guy. I think they gave him the job of replying to me and he did the best he could. So the reply was very PR, saying nothing new kind of reply. And I wanted to go over, so I told them that the transparency about applying was bad. It's really bad. And he said that, no, it's very transparent. It's on the website. And I don't think they're aware of how vague the requirements are, which of course comes with the field. It is art, it is subjective, but I feel like it could all be much clearer. This year they updated the requirements on their website and they are a little bit better, but it's still insufficient, especially their movement section and what they've done to the storyboard section. They are asking for, what was it, maximum 9 panels for a storyboard, I think it was. And that is that's a very limited amount of panels for someone to showcase a story. So if there's one thing that is universal about students and applicants talking about the judging process, the application process, it is this motto: we just don't know what they want. Everyone says this. Everyone says, we don't know what they want. It is a mystery. Sometimes people with great art don't get in. We don't know why. And this is universal. And I also want to say, in regards to transparency, that when I've approached different professionals at TAW, I've heard extremely contradictory feedback about my portfolios and about what I'm doing wrong. And I'm talking contradictory in the sense that someone might say, oh, your movement section is definitely the strongest part of your portfolio. Keep doing this. And then another one saying, the movement part is the weakest section of your portfolio. You really need to work on this. And that makes someone crazy with overthinking and not knowing what they need to improve because they have no idea. And that is why we need more transparency. And I was very disappointed and underwhelmed by this reply because I felt like it was completely ignoring my points. And I felt that, nothing would change. So I replied to them again, expressing how I felt about this, that I thought it was insufficient. So that's when it turned from PR politeness to PR irritation from a different person. This guy never replied again. And, not his fault, I understand. But another person replied to this and they were like, this is your responsibility. I mean, you're right, it is. Legally, you're just an institution, but on a human level, this is cool. Especially when I know about other cases, and I know that TAW isn't perfect when it comes to applications. I'm going to talk about 2 incidents that happened on past years. Their application process is known for being not just fundamentally flawed, but also technically flawed. So I need to explain a couple of concepts for this. So in Denmark, the acceptances to an education all come out on the 28th of July. I think that's just the law. So for international students, what TAW had been doing for years was that they would send preliminary acceptances so people would know if they're in, so they can move in. So in 2022, there was an incident where people got their preliminary acceptances, they moved to Viborg, they quit their jobs because they thought they would be studying, and then on the 28th of July, they got rejected. Allegedly, this was because they accepted more people than they could take in. And I think TAW should have done more than just be like, whoops, you're not in, sorry. I think they should have offered those affected students all a standby seat, even if it was unofficial. I don't think that was okay. You told people they were accepted because of your system, and you had an accident, and those students were affected, and they moved in to your school, and then you told them they were rejected. That is not okay. And then in 2023, the next year, there was this other accident that affected Danish students who had applied more than once. So what happened was that the judges saw their previous year's portfolios, not their current year's portfolios, and they were rejected. And the way this was found out, it is also not my story to tell, but it was through complete coincidence and brought up by a student, not found out by them. They found out because of this student noticing it. And this time, at least, they did correct it. And to my knowledge, I think everyone who was affected by this mistake was accepted, which good, because it is a big mistake to make. And they should be really careful with that. And then in 2024, I will say no major accidents have happened, but 2 or 3 minor incidents have happened. And it is okay because in the end, they were harmless. So my point with that was that you should be aware that there have been issues with the application system in the past, and that is something to be taken into account. I also want to say that I don't think the people involved have a vendetta against me or something. I don't think that they're terrible people or anything like that. In fact, I also want to say that a teacher at TAW has been incredibly nice to me. And I want to appreciate that, because when I approached her, she kept up with me. She sent me schools that unfortunately weren't possible for me, but she kept sending me schools. She kept trying to help me, and I really appreciate that. And there are good people at that school. My advice is, if you're applying for your third or fourth time, you need to start reconsidering if you have alternatives or if this is worth it. Because the school won't care that you're trying to get in. At that point, you've been applying for longer than you would have been studying there. And if you share your experiences in the comments, I would be very grateful to hear them. Not just because of it would be helpful for others, but also selfishly, because it will feel less lonely for me. So yeah, I think that's it. I hope that this, urges the school to change their system, because I do mean it when I say I don't want anyone to go through what I did, because it was absolutely horrible and it was for nothing. And I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, so I hope they change it, or I hope there is more awareness. I don't know if other school application systems are similar or worse, but that doesn't really change my point that I still find this insufficient. Like I said, I think there are actual mistakes the institution has made, but I also realize that they don't owe us any information or feedback or anything. But on a human level, it would be, very nice not to have people put their lives on hold, because for some people it is their only option and it can affect them greatly. So I hope it is taken seriously, and I hope anyone who might find themselves in a similar situation reflects on it. And thank you for watching and listening. And if you have any questions about the application system, I'll try to reply to them to the best of my ability.